Hey entrepreneurs, today I want to talk to you about motivation and the two basic foundational pillars that have to be in place if you're going to feel motivated. If you ever notice a dip in your motivation and your drive, ask yourself whether one of these two pieces are missing in some way. One, you've got to have something that you actually want, and two, you've got to believe that you can have it if you put in some effort to get that. Now, there's this third modulating feature, which is how close in time is the thing that you want to get. The closer it is, in other words, the more it feels like just a little bit of effort and then I'll be across that finish line and have the thing I want, the higher our motivation and our drive tends to be. But if we just back up and look at the big picture, all we need are those two pillars, is that there's something you want and you believe you can get it. In other words, it's within your power to take action in order to get that thing that you want. That's the formula for motivation. It unlocks that dopamine in your brain to say, I want that, and it unlocks the energy to pursue the thing that you want. So in research studies in the animal kingdom, we found, for example, that if you give a monkey a grape, when it sees it just outside of its cage and it wants it, and this was actually an interesting study that had to do with monkeys learning to control a robotic arm through a chip implanted in their head. But if they can get that grape to themselves, the dopamine spikes as they're getting closer and closer to achieving the goal. Once they have that grape and they put it in their mouth and they crunch in and start chewing on the grape, dopamine starts to dissipate. Dopamine is like the neurotransmitter of action and desire and drive, right? It's a lot more than that, but that's in the context of motivation. That's the primary way that it fits in. And so if you think about that and you consider the moments where your drive or your motivation dips, it's often because you start to think that something's out of your control. For example, some of my clients might go through a period of time where they come to a coaching call with me and they say, yeah, I've just been feeling kind of down and unmotivated this week because the conversion rate on this product that we're selling dropped in the last 2 days. It's been really bad. And it doesn't make any sense. It's just like Facebook just hates us this week and we don't know why. It's the don't know why part that drops your motivation. Because if you knew exactly what to do, you'd feel motivated to fix that so that you could have the thing you want, which is the profits and seeing the green, right, on that conversion rate and the dollars rolling in. And so if you find yourself in that position, I want to ask you to do one of two things: zoom in or zoom out, and usually some combination of both. So in that situation where you're experiencing a couple of down days where you thought you had cracked a campaign, and you were seeing like 5 days of continuous upward trajectory in your profits, and then all of a sudden it tanks for 2 days, I want to ask you to zoom out and consider that statistically speaking, it might just be noise. And sometimes we have to zoom out and think, wait, over the long term, over the last 2 or 3 months, are we making progress at understanding, at discovering products or services the market wants, at discovering ways to get those things to convert in a way that leads to dollars rolling in? And if you can say yes to that by zooming out, then it can diminish the negative impact of those 2 days of seemingly out of nowhere slap in the face. No, you thought you had discovered a converting campaign and you haven't. That's the message that you get if you zoom in and you just look at the last 2 or 3 days, right? But if you zoom out and you say, are we continuously learning and getting better and better at this? Then your motivation starts to increase because you realize, yes, actually we are. We've made quite a few breakthroughs. This is one of the reasons why at the beginning of every coaching session, I ask my clients to name 3 wins, is because as an entrepreneur, it's so easy to get focused on the problems because that's what you do. That's the work of an entrepreneur, is you're at the cutting edge. You're creating something that didn't exist before. So you take a stab at things, you create a system, and then you're putting out fires and fixing problems. You're problem solving all the time. And of course, our brain is designed to focus on problems rather than on what we already have and what's good, to the detriment of our happiness and sense of well-being. So we have to occasionally to reset our mood and well-being, which contributes directly to energy, which contributes to productivity. We have to come back to celebrate our wins. So sometimes you have to zoom out and say, have I been winning on average over the last year, over the last month? Am I making progress? And sometimes you have to do the opposite. Sometimes you need to zoom in. So if you have a big project and you feel like, this is months out, it may be 6 months before I'm done working on this, and I'm just not feeling the motivation. Sometimes what you have to do is zoom in this context, meaning zoom in on a smaller piece of that puzzle. chunk it down and say, I've got 3 hours. I'm going to create some structure for myself to try to race across 3 hours and accomplish some tiny little piece that you've identified, that you've put some brackets around, you've pulled it out from the rest of this huge project, and you just say, I want to try to make progress on this. And by zooming in that way, sometimes you'll be able to ramp up your motivation by having a finish line that's closer and something that you have more of that belief you can achieve, right? Because something that's huge and you can barely even hold all the pieces in your mind, sometimes it becomes difficult to believe that you're going to actually achieve that. And so your motivation drops. But by zooming in, you increase your belief that, well, I can definitely achieve this part. Like I can have a meeting with my partners about this problem, and I can introduce this one solution I've thought of, and I feel like we'll probably make some progress at solving that problem. That starts to increase your motivation because you believe you can achieve it and it's something you want. So just use those two tools this week. That's your challenge. Zoom in, zoom out. Use those two different strategies for how to manipulate your own mind in order to, in service of unlocking your own natural motivation. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with the results. Talk to you again next week.